G'day traders, Rich again. Look, I thought it best for our forum members who are a part of our testing community to run through the process of optimization, iteration and testing, just to make you familiar once again with the process in a quick way, to get you comfortable with how you go about it. It seems daunting at first, but when I show you on this video the actual process, it'll start to make you realize that it is a much easier process than what it may appear. So to start with, what we'll do is we'll start with MetaTrader installation, and we'll start with the Donchian Trader and its optimizer. So we've downloaded particular sub-portfolio files into the relevant directories. Just follow the installation guidance given in the prior video instruction. And now we want to use Donchian, a Donchian Trader and the Donchian optimizer. So this is the first part of the process. We're going to use EURUSD for this particular example that we're demonstrating, and we're going to use open prices only. For the date range and the settings, please refer to the spreadsheet that's been provided to our forum members. So refer to the EURUSD. You'll be wanting to test in sample between 1st of the 1st 2000 up to 31st of the 12th 2019, and your spread needs to be 40 points, and we're using the daily time frame with open prices. So we'll set that up. We've got the date range 200101 up to 2019 1231. Over here in the spread, we set our spread to 40 points for the EURUSD, and we're on the daily time frame. The other thing we need to do is click optimization. Make sure that the visual mode is turned off. We're just using the optimization here. And now we refer to our expert properties and go to the testing tab. The first thing we want to do is tick off the genetic algorithm, so it's off. We select balance here. We select 100,000 as our testing initial deposit in USD, both long and short. And then in our inputs tab, we set it up as follows. So we are optimizing only these particular parameters: the Donchian period, the ATR period, the stop loss in ATR multiples, the trailing stop in ATR multiples, and the break-even condition in ATR multiples. So these have been ticked. Notice how these other boxes have not been ticked. We also want to make sure that our trade risk in our test is 0.5%. We make this 0. So 0.5. We're testing 0 for, by putting 0 in here, that means it refers to the percentage risk per trade of 0.5% trade equity risk. And we make sure these are unticked. So this setting will always be used. Donchian period, we range between 100 to 1000 with steps of 50. The ATR period, we have a start of 10 up to 20 with steps of 5. The stop loss in ATR multiples, we start with 1 and go to 5 with steps of 1. The trailing stop loss in ATR multiples starts at 2, goes to 20 in steps of 1. And our break-even setting in ATR multiples is just like our stop loss setting. It goes from 1 to 5 in steps of 1. Also make sure trade history is set to false. Also, you need to ensure you've inserted your password to allow you to undertake this test. Now that you have inserted your password and set up all of the expert properties, we are now ready to commence with the start of the optimization process. So we just click start. And the optimization process will run. This is a slow PC, so this is taking its time. So we've had two trials now, or two permutations being undertaken. 3 is stepped through as we go along. When we go to the settings tab, you'll see that we've got 27,000 iterations to go through, and that's why I'm using a faster computer to run through this. On a fairly high-end computer, you should be able to run this process within 3 hours. but on this particular PC I'm using for this demonstration, it's a very slow PC with limited processing capacity, and it's a much slower process, so this might take 4 or 5 hours. In relation to the files that are now being generated in the background, if we go to Open Data Folder, we go to Tester, and we go to Files, you'll notice that a file subdirectory has been created by the algorithm called DON, which relates to the Donchian system that we're currently testing now. And if we go into that, you'll see that 5 files are being generated and updated as the process of optimization continues. These 5 files at the end of the process are used for our next stage iteration process, which we'll get into following this demonstration of the optimization process. So that's it. These are the files being generated, and these are the ones that are used by the iterator in the next section. So that's the optimization process. So for this example, I've now returned after about 3 or 4 hours, and the optimization is complete. I just want to check that the files have been created correctly. So I go to File, Open Data Folder, Tester, Files, go into that DON again, and just make sure that all of these files, these 5 files, have been created for EURUSD. They look all good. The equity file is a very large file. This is the MAR calculator, the drawdown calculator, the performance calculator per variation, and the return calculator. So that's all been done, and the optimization is complete. Now I want to move to the iteration process. So the first thing I do is I go back to my files directory with my DON over here, and now I want to transfer this entire subdirectory to another location. I do this by opening up the data folder again, and in this case, instead of using tester and in files, I use MQL4 and files, and I bring up my other directory. So now I want to drag and drop this entire subdirectory of 5 files into this location here. So now that has been dropped into the MQL file subdirectory, and now I am ready to iterate. So I close these down. To undertake the iteration, we are not using the strategy tester, but we are using the chart itself. So select a clean chart. Select the black template that is provided with the download kit, and select the daily time frame. So sitting in the background here, we've actually got the EURUSD, but it's all blacked out. We do this so that we can see the iterator performing. The next step is to go into the DON trader and select the DON iterator. You can either double click or drag and drop it onto the chart. If I drag and drop it onto the, if I double click it, you've got to enter your password here. We want, in this case, it to do pick the top 500 of the 27,000 optimization runs. And in this case, we're going to sort them by return criteria. So the top 500 in terms of return criteria. So we select 1 for our option here to be for return. I want it to run 20 million iterations, so I change this to 2, so that's 20 million iterations. And because I want the outcome to be 5 individual strategies, I set my minimum random strategies to 5, and I set my maximum random strategies to 5, and I make sure that my starting balance once again is $100,000. So that's it for the iterator. When you press OK, the iteration will run. So now the iterator is running. You can see the information clicking over here at the top. Now currently it is looking for the top 500 in terms of return of the series. Once it has found that top 500, it's then going to start the iteration process. So we'll just wait until the top 500 has been selected, and you'll see what happens. So it's already up to 424. Once it gets to 500, we'll start seeing it activate. Almost there. 475, went up to 486. Here we go. We've now got 500 selected from the 27,000 optimization runs. Now it's running through the iteration process, and we can see it working. So we wait until this process is complete, and we'll get a message at the end of the process. Now when the iteration process is finished, you'll get a message to click to close the EA, and the iteration is done. Before you do close the EA, just note that you have 5 separate strategies identified here, and here are the parameter values used for those strategies that produce the best risk-adjusted return from the iterator. Now that the iteration's over, we'll go and have a look at the additional files that have been produced by this process. We go to File, we go to Open Data Folder, and we look in MQL4 Files, see the DON subdirectory, and we open it up. We can see that an additional 2 files have been generated, these 2 files here. These now are the 5 strategies that have been selected by the iterator. If we open up these strategies, we'll see that the details of the 5 strategies have been selected here. Now these are the strategies, or the parameter values of the strategies that are used by the backtester. It refers to these strategies. So if you want to amend any of these values, you amend this particular file here called EURUSD strategies, and you amend the values, and the backtester will pick up those values when it undertakes a backtest. So that's the end of the process of iteration. So now we want to undertake the backtest process itself. Now the first thing we do is we bring up the backtest module by going View and select Strategy Tester. What we want to do also is to relocate those files that we used for the iteration back into the tester folder. So to do that, we go to File, Open Data Folder, we select MQL4 Files. Now that's where the current files are located. I want to relocate them to the tester directory. So the first thing I'm going to do is bring up another version of data folder, select tester, select files, and I want to drag and drop from the MQL files location this subdirectory here back into the tester files. So I drag and drop it back into here. So now the backtest module knows to look to this location to undertake the backtest according to the strategies we have defined from the iteration process. So we close that off. Now what we want to do is go to the third algorithm called the trader, which undertakes the backtest. We select the DON trader, we're on EURUSD, we select open prices only, we select the date range for testing, which in this case is from 1st of the 1st 2000 up to 31st of the 12th 2019. We use a spread that we're using for testing purposes, which we obtained from our file in the forum. So in this case EURUSD, we're using a spread of 40. So we use that. We turn off optimization here and we turn on visualization here. We go to the expert properties, we select, put in our password, we select our trade risk percentage of 0.5, and we also make sure we're using a $100,000 balance. That's it for that setting up the process for the backtesting. Now we're ready to undertake the backtest once we've put in the password. So we're now ready to undertake our backtest. So hit the start button and the backtest will start running, referring to the strategy configuration in that tester files directory, and we'll see that trades are being active. Now for this purpose we'll do a very quick test here over the test range. to 2010. You can see that the equity curve is rising nicely. Now, of course, this is going to be a positive result because we've gone through an optimization process over this date range. So it would be very surprising if we got a poor result. But the real test to this comes to how this performs in outer sample testing, which we'll do following this exercise. So that's it. We've had a very nice positive equity curve. We see the results either in our report here. Now, for the forum members who are participating in our testing community, once that process has been run, I just want you to have a look at the additional files that are generated. So we go Open Data Folder, Tester, Files, go into our DON subdirectory, and you'll see that two additional files have been created called Portfolio Equity and Portfolio Performance. These are used in our further portfolio compilation process, which we'll describe at a later date. But this is the entire suite of files now that have been generated by this entire process. What I'd like you to do is to, I'd like you to zip this file up and load it onto the forum. So we'll just zip it as an example, add to archive. I'll zip the files with the best setting. It's now creating a zipped file directory. Now what I'd like you to do is label that, for this instance, EURUSD D1 DON. Then please load this onto the forum, and we will then use this for compiling, and we'll send back the results to our forum members so they can see how the process went. So that's the backtesting process. Now, also what I'd like you to do is, just as an example for your own benefit, we don't need this information for our testing purposes, but I'd like you then to run long range backtests, so 1970 up to the current day. This is just to satisfy yourselves that these results aren't curve fit, so we're going to run the entire test from as much data as we have. I think it's about 1971, but we put an earlier date here just to make sure we cover all of the data up to the current day. So today's date is 16th of the 3rd, 2020. And because we have located that Donchian directory file in the correct location in the tested directory, we can now undertake this long-term backtest just by hitting the start button. So now we've got the long-term backtest running, and you'll be able to see then how this performs out of sample. So we're up to 1979, 1980. You can see that the equity curve is rising beautifully. So this is all out of sample. In fact, we go right all out of sample up to the year 2000. We can certainly see that the strategy has performed very well out of sample. So we're now up to 1987. And I'll just let this run through. I don't need to give any further commentary. We'll let this run through the process just to see how it performs. So remember that the in-sample period was between 2000 to 2019, so we've got a long out-of-sample period prior to that date back to 1971, and of course we've got the out-of-sample period from January 2020 up to current day. So we're at 1997 at the moment. It's natural to get drawdown periods, so we do get drawdown periods, as for example here and here. We have drawdown periods right throughout this entire test, but overall the trajectory of the equity curve is looking good, certainly powerfully performing over the long term. We're now in our in-sample period up to 2005. So far there is nothing to suggest that the market conditions that have been presented over this entire history has made it fall off the cliff. It certainly seems fairly robust, able to survive a variety of different market conditions, and certainly produces long-term robust, sustainable results. We're in a drawdown period here, and now we're entering this marvellous short for EURUSD, which lifts the equity curve. (2016, 17 now). So once you've undertaken that in-sample test and provided the data onto the forum, just play around with this, having a look at robustness measures. So we can clearly see that from even in our outer sample period up to current day, it certainly hasn't been falling off the cliff. The overall report produces a very good profit margin, excellent equity result, and what's to be expected from a trend following system in relation to its probability of win and its average win to average loss relationship. So all good there. So that gives you a rundown of the process for our forum members who wish to become a part of our testing community. Once you get into the swing of this, it becomes fairly a standard practice, but you can see that this entire process therefore generates these very, very robust solutions. Now we've got the Donchian system, we've got the breakout system, we've got the moving average with the take profit target, and we've got the moving average cross with the trailing stop condition. 4 different systems across about 21 markets we need to test. So happy testing, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks very much. Bye.